We came down into the Wist Valley at 9 at night, with the rain gone off, and a low mist standing on the water like something waiting to be asked a question. 40 miles. He changed horses twice and paid for them like a man throwing coins at a river, and the second time at the Bell in Marrow Ford, the ostler took one look at his face and did not ask his name, and we were gone again in 4 minutes. I followed in the gig with my knees aching and my heart going like a bird in a box, and I thought, he will kill that gray. And then, no, he knows exactly what the horse can bear. He has never in his life asked more of anything than it could bear. That is his whole disease. Stonewick at night is a smell before it is a town. Wet ash, wet rope, the low green rod of a river that has stopped trying. The almshouse row runs along the water below the church, 12 doors, 1 step, 1 window each, and a common yard behind with a pump and a great cracked drying green where the widows hang the linen of their betters. He got down at the head of the row and stood. I have thought since that this was the hardest thing he did that year, not the ride, not the grave, not what came after with his mother. Simply standing at the head of that row in the mud, in a coat worth more than the 12 houses behind him, with a mended shirt inside it, and understanding that he did not know which door. Marsh, he said. Which? 9th, I said. Your Grace, let me go first. She does not know you are alive to her. I heard what I had said. God forgive me, she does not know she is alive to you. He looked at the 9th door. No, he said. It is my hand that put her in that jail. She will not hear my voice out of another man's mouth. But he did not go to the door. There was a light behind the row, a lantern on the drying green, and the sound of a pail. And he turned toward the sound the way a compass turns, without deciding to. She was taking in sheets. 3 years, and I will tell you exactly what I saw, because I have never been able to stop seeing it. A thin woman in a widow's cap and a gray stuff gown, with her sleeves pushed to the elbow, unpegging a sheet from a line in the mist, folding it against her body the way laundresses do, the swing, the catch, the fold under the chin, and setting it in a basket at her feet. Her hands were red to the wrist. There was a lantern on the pump head, and the whole yard was a soft gray nothing, and she was moving through it briskly, because it was late and the mist would take the drying out of the linen, and she was counting. I heard her counting under her breath, 9, 10. The Duke of Ashenmore walked to the edge of the drying green and stopped, and said nothing at all. She turned around with the sheet against her chest. I do not know what she saw. A big man in a black coat at the edge of a lantern's light, and the horse behind him, and the mist. She stood absolutely still, and I saw her hands close on the linen, and I thought, she thinks she is taken. She thinks it is the law. Then she said, Alaric. Just that, not your Grace, not my lord. She had never once in her life called him by his name, and she called him by it now, in a laundry yard in the dark, because a person's first word is not a decision. And the Iron Duke of Ashenmore said, You are alive, and his voice broke in the middle of it like a boy's. She did not run to him. I want that recorded, because a great many people have since told the story as though she did, and it is a small theft from her, and she was robbed enough. She set the sheet in the basket. She straightened it. She put her hands together in front of her and held them still, and she said, in the level voice she had used to count drops, Dr. Marsh, was it you told him, or the shirt? The shirt, I said, the knot. She closed her eyes for a moment. 3 years, she said, and I am undone by a lark's foot. Miss Lark. Mrs. Meade, sir, in this yard, if you please, until I know what is to become of you. And she opened her eyes and looked past me at the Duke and said, Your Grace, has he told you the whole? He has. Then you know he is a felon, and that you are a magistrate, and that we are all 3 of us standing in the open. Yes. Then come inside, said Verity Lark, because the pump yard is not the place for it, and you are frightening Mrs. Ashby at the 11th door, who has a bad heart and a good view. That is who she was. The room was 10 feet by 8. A bed, a chair, a stool, a deal table, a shelf with 4 books on it, a fire the size of a hand. On the table, a shirt on a board and a needle stuck upright in a cushion with a thread of gray silk in it, and a little pair of scissors, and a rushlight burned down to a stub. The Duke of Ashenmore stood in the middle of it and had to bow his head, and did not seem to know what to do with his hands. "Sit down, your grace," she said. "The chair is sound, the stool is not." He sat. She stood, because there was only the stool left and she did not want it, and I stood in the doorway with the door shut behind me and my back against it like a man guarding a treasury. And then, for perhaps 5 seconds, nobody said anything, and I watched 2 people look at each other across a deal table for the first time in 3 years, and I understood that neither of them had ever said one word to the other that was not about a dying boy or a ledger or a dose. He said, "I have a great deal to say to you, and no right to say any of it, and if you send me out of this room I will go." "Then say it," she said. "Not first." He put his hand inside his coat and brought out the folded shirt and laid it on the table between them like evidence, which it was. "First, the thing you have spent 3 years on. Tell me, every part of it. I will not interrupt you, and I will not tell you that you are mistaken, and if it takes till morning, I have till morning." Verity Lark looked at the shirt on the table. Then she said, "Move the rushlight, sir. I shall want the floor." And she knelt down by the bed and took up a floorboard with the point of her scissors. There were 11 papers under it, each folded in 4 and sealed with a wafer, each with a date on the outside in her hand, and a 12th that was not sealed, and a bundle of little squares of grocer's paper that turned out to be, when I understood them, 3 years of arithmetic done at the ends of days by a woman too tired to trust herself, and checked again. She laid them out on the table in order like a hand of cards. "I will be plain and quick, your grace, because you have ridden 40 miles and there is nothing here that requires a flourish." She put her finger on the first paper. "In September of that year, Mr. Pell asked me to make a fair copy of the poor box ledger, the charity your mother keeps, the Ashenmore Widows' Fund that pays out at Michaelmas and Lady Day to the parish. He said his eyes pained him. I copied it. I was 3 days at it in the schoolroom in the evenings." "I remember the evenings," the Duke said. "There was a light in the schoolroom and I did not come up." She did not look at him. "The fund receives from the estate £140 a year and takes in subscriptions from the county, the Vanes, the Marchbanks, the Hollys, some 22 names. Mr. Pell's ledger showed the receipts. It showed the payments out, parish by parish, with the churchwarden's initials against them. And in July I had carried the Lady Day money down to Blackmere myself, in the gig with Mr. Pell, because your brother was too ill to go and it was his charity, and he wished someone to see it done. And I stood in the vestry and watched the churchwarden of Blackmere sign for £11 4 shillings. She touched the paper. "The ledger I copied in September said £31 4 shillings, and had the same signature and the same date." The Duke of Ashenmore said, very quietly, £20. £20 at Blackmere, 9 at Kell Bottom, 14 at Stonewick, which is why I know the Stonewick figure, your grace, because Stonewick is my own town and I know to a shilling what the widows here were paid that year, and it was not £14 more than they got. Her finger moved down the paper. "Across the 4 parishes in 2½ years, £192, 11 shillings. That is what I could prove from what I had seen with my own eyes. There is more that I could not." "And you told him?" "I told him. I did not go to your mother because she does not receive governesses, and I did not go to you because—" and here for the first time she faltered, 1 beat and recovered, "because I was 23 and the steward of a great house had 20 years in it and I had 8 months, and I thought a written note was the proper form. So I wrote it out. I gave it into his own hand in the muniment room on the 4th of October, and I asked him to explain the discrepancy to me before I completed the copy, and I said that if he could not, I should have to lay it before his grace." The fire ticked. The Duke had not moved. "He was very kind," said Verity Lark. "He thanked me for my care. He said there was a second book, a disbursements book, that would account for it, and that he would bring it. He asked for my keys, all of them, so that he might set the schoolroom press to rights while he was about it, since I was going down to sit with Lord Cashin. It was Michaelmas quarter, and there was a general accounting, and every servant in the house gave up their keys that fortnight. I gave him mine on the 5th of October. And the sapphires were found on the 20th of November, said the Duke. 9 days after your brother died. Yes. I heard him breathe. Say the rest, he said. There is not much. He never brought the second book. Lord Cashin grew worse, and I did not press it because I was in the sick room 18 hours in the day, and a ledger seemed a small thing beside a boy who could not lie flat. She said it steadily. That was my great fault, Your Grace, and I have had 3 years to look at it. If I had gone to you in October with that letter in my hand, your brother would have died all the same, and your mother's charity would have been an honest one, and I should not have been in Blackmere jail in February. The Duke of Ashenmore put his face in his hands. Verity Lark looked at the top of his bowed head for a moment, and something went across her face that was not exactness at all, and she put it away as he had put things away, and she said, He kept my letter. He looked up. Sir, I know that man. He is not wicked in the manner of a highwayman. He is wicked in the manner of a clerk. He kept every note he ever received in his life because a note received is a proof that he was informed, and a man who is informed and does nothing may always, at the very last, say I referred it to the proper quarter. It is in the muniment room at Ashenmore. It is in the third press, the one with the lion on the lock, in a bundle marked in his hand, queries household. She looked at him levelly. I filed it there myself in August, when he had me filing his correspondence because his eyes pained him. There was a silence in that little room. Then the Duke of Ashenmore began, slowly, to laugh, one dry, cracked, appalling sound, and he stopped it at once, as if ashamed. 3 years, he said. 3 years, madam, and the whole of it in a press in my own house, 20 feet above the room where I sat every night not sleeping. Yes. Under a lion. Under a lion, Your Grace. He stood up. He was too tall for the room, and he stooped under the beam, and he looked down at the papers spread on the deal table, 11 sealed quarters of a woman's memory, checked and checked again by rushlight after a day of other people's linen. You copied it out, he said, every quarter for 3 years. Memory rots, sir. I wish to see whether mine did. And did it? No, said Verity Lark, it did not. And the Duke of Ashenmore said, no, it would not. Then he said, now the rest, and then I shall say what I came to say. Your Grace was the second charge, madam, and it was never brought, and it is the one that has been eating me alive. Look at me. Did my brother die of your hand? No. Did you take the stones? No. Do you know that I never for 1 hour believed you had touched the boy? She was quiet. Say it, he said. Say whether you knew it, because I never told you, and I have understood these 3 years that a thing not said is a thing not done. Verity Lark said, I did not know it, Your Grace. He took that. I watched him take it, standing in a widow's room with his head bent under a beam, and it was worse than the coffin. No, he said, how should you? You said to your office, she said. In the drawing-room you said she will have the assizes. I did. And you were right to say it, said Verity Lark, and I saw the Duke's head come up. Sir, I will not have you carry the wrong sin. You will carry it forever, and it will be the wrong one. If you had covered it, you would have been the man you have spent your life turning other men off your land for being. The county would have said the Duke's servants may steal, and the Duke will hide it, and you would have been finished, and rightly. You did the just thing. Her voice did not rise. It did the opposite. It went quieter and more exact. The just thing was a machine, and it ate me, and your mother started it, and you may grieve for that till the end of your life. But do not tell me you should have been a worse magistrate. I have no use for a man who would bend the law for me, because he would bend it for the next Osric Pell as well. The Duke stared at her. But there is a thing you did do, she said, and I have thought about it for 3 years, and I will say it once and never again. Say it. You never came. The fire ticked. Not to the jail, she said. Not the once. I do not mean to take me out, you could not, and I would not have gone. I mean that there were 4 months, sir, between the assize and the fever, and every third day Dr. Marsh came down that stair with his bag, and never once was there anybody behind him. You are the magistrate. You could have walked into Blackmere jail on any Tuesday of your life, and no man in England could have stopped you or said a word about it, because you might have gone to inspect the drains. Her hands were folded and perfectly still. You could have stood at that grating for 1 minute and said, Miss Lark, I do not believe you touched my brother, and I should have gone to New South Wales and been transported for 7 years, and I should have lived. I mean to say, I should have had something. There was a long, long silence. I was afraid, said the Duke of Ashmore. Of what? Of what I should say to you. He said it looking at the deal table. I had sat as a magistrate on the evidence, and the evidence was against you, and there was 1 hour of every night when I could not make it come out right, and I knew that if I went down those stairs and looked at you through iron, I should say to you the thing I had never allowed myself to say in my own house, and it would have been the cruelest thing any man ever said to a woman in a jail. He raised his head. And I would have said it anyway. So I did not go. And you had the fever alone, and Marsh filled a box with stones, and I have spent 3 years putting a stone over 4 stone of river shingle with your name cut in it, and I have not slept a night through since November. Verity Lark said nothing. You have not asked me what the thing was, he said. No, your grace, she said, I have not. And she turned away to the fire and knelt down and began, with great attention, to build it up with 3 small pieces of coal, which is what a person does with their hands when their hands would otherwise betray them, and I thought, she has known since the doorway with the livy in it. She has known for 4 years. She simply has no place to put it. The Duke stood over her. Then I shall not say it tonight, he said. You are a woman with no name and no character, and a felony hanging over the man behind me, and if I said it to you in this room tonight you could not answer it freely, and I have taken enough from you without taking that. He picked up the folded shirt from the table. May I keep this? She looked up. It is your shirt, your grace. It is not, said the Duke of Ashmore. It is my brother's, and it went to the laundry with the morning and came back into my hamper by an error of Sowerby's, and I have been wearing my dead brother's linen for 3 years without once looking at the cuffs. He put it inside his coat. God is not subtle, madam, only slow. Then he said, in an entirely different voice, the voice he used at the assizes, We leave at 6. Marsh, you will go to Blackmere, and you will bring the parson, the constable, the coroner if he will come, and the churchwarden if he will not, and a mason and 2 men with spades, and you will meet me at the U at 11 o'clock on Friday. Mrs. Mead. Miss Lark, she said, if we are opening the grave. The Duke of Ashmore stopped. Miss Lark, he said, you will not come to the graveside. You will come to Ashmore, and you will stand in the muniment room, and you will put your own hand on that press, because it is going to be opened before witnesses, and I will not have it said hereafter that I found the letter and might have written it myself. They will say it anyway. Some of them, not the ones who count. He went to the door, and I stepped aside. And Miss Lark, one more thing, and then I am done ordering people about in their own houses, which I perceive is a habit of mine. Yes. My mother will be in the room. Verity Lark rose from the hearth and wiped her hands slowly on her apron, and looked at him with her chin up, and there was in that gray, exact face something I had not seen there in the courtroom, or the jail, or the fever. Good, she said. They opened the grave at Blackmere on the Friday at 11, beyond the U, in a fine warm rain. I have attended, in my professional life, a number of exhumations, and they are wretched things, and the men do them quickly and speak of other matters. This one was different because there was a crowd. Word had gone out. It goes out in the country the way water goes downhill, and by no method anybody can name. There were perhaps 200 people at that wall: laborers, the Feveryard families, 3 of the jurymen who had taken 40 minutes, the schoolmaster, the woman who sold pies at the assize. And the Duke of Ashenmore stood bareheaded in the rain in a black coat, not saying one word, and the parson read nothing, because there is nothing appointed to be read. They lifted it at 20 past 11. The constable, a decent, frightened, hard-breathing man named Hollies, who had put his own hand on Verity Lark's arm in a bedchamber 3 years before, and had not slept especially well either, went down on his knees in the wet clay and drew the nails. River stones, 4 stone weight of gray whist shingle, and a woman's shawl, gray wool, mended at the corner with a small flat double loop of thread. I heard the sound the crowd made. It was not a gasp. It was lower than that, and it went on longer, and there was a note in it of something being handed back. The Duke of Ashenmore turned to the constable and said, clearly, so that the wall could hear, "Mr. Hollies, I require you to note that the coffin interred as Verity Lark contains no body, that the certificate of death was false, and that the man who wrote it stands beside me and does not deny it." 200 people looked at me. "I do not deny it," I said. My voice came out steadier than I had feared. "I did it alone and for my own reasons, and she did not know of it till she woke." "Furthermore," said the Duke, "I require you to note that the sentence of transportation stands against the said Verity Lark, that she is at this hour in the muniment room at Ashenmore Hall under my roof, and that I have not concealed her and do not intend to. She will be produced at the assize. There is a petition going up to the Crown, and I have signed it, and Sir Gerald Marchbank has signed it, and it will bear 400 names before the month is out. And it says that the conviction was procured by the man who committed the theft, and that the evidence to prove it has been these 3 years in my own house, and that I am ashamed." He said the last word without any softening at all, in the rain, to 200 people, and it went round that wall like a stone in water. "Note also," said the Duke of Ashenmore, "that no charge whatsoever was ever brought against her touching my brother's death, and that no charge could have been, and that the words spoken in my drawing-room on that subject were spoken by a member of my family, and were false, and were not contradicted by me, and I contradict them now." He put his hat on. "Mr. Hollies, do your office." And Constable Hollies, who was not a clever man but was that day a great one, said, "Your Grace, in the matter of Dr. Marsh, am I to take him?" "You are to do exactly as the law directs you," said the Duke, "and I will hear no other course, and if it costs me the only friend left to me in England, then I shall pay it. Ask the coroner. Ask the bench. Do not ask me, Hollies, and do not ask me ever again, because I am the man who did not ask 3 years ago, and look at what is in that box." That is what he did. I want it written down because he has been called a great many things since, some of them by me. He rode home in the rain and did not speak. And at 4 o'clock that afternoon he stood in the muniment room at Ashenmore Hall, where the light comes through in bars off the moor, with the constable, the parson, Sir Gerald Marchbank, 2 churchwardens, his own attorney, Mr. Osric Pell, his mother, and Verity Lark in a grey stuff gown, and a widow's cap she would not take off. Pell was a neat man of 50 with a good coat and a chin like a thumb, and he had gone the color of a candle when she walked in, and he had covered it, and I saw the covering, and so did the Duke. "The third press," said the Duke of Ashenmore, "the one with the lion, Mr. Pell the key." "Your Grace, the household queries, they are of no." "The key, Mr. Pell." "I fear it is mislaid, your Grace. I shall have a search made, and by Tuesday." "Sir Gerald," said the Duke, "will you be so good as to witness that the steward of this house has this moment declined to open a press upon his master's order?" He took an iron bar off the wall, a fire iron, God knows what it was doing there, and he put it into the lion's mouth and set his shoulder to it, and the door came off with a crack that made the parson jump. Presses full of paper, bundles tied in tape, and a bundle marked in a clerk's beautiful hand, queries household. "Miss Lark," said the Duke and stepped back. "You will please open it. I will not touch it. Sir Gerald, mark that I have not touched it." Verity Lark crossed the room. Her hands, red at the wrist, did not shake at all. She untied the tape and turned the papers over, a query about the coal, a query about the dairy, and drew out a folded sheet and held it up without unfolding it and said, "Sir Gerald, will you read the endorsement on the back in Mr. Pell's hand before ever I open it?" And Sir Gerald Marchbank, 60 years old and a stranger to drama, took it and turned it and read aloud in the bar of Moorlight. "Rect 4 oct from Miss Lark's schoolroom, query on the poor box Blackmere and Stonewick, answered verbally, nothing further rect." Then he opened it and read what was inside. £192, 11 shillings, 4 parishes, 2 half-years, the figures, the dates, the churchwarden's signature seen with her own eyes in a governess's clear round hand, and dated the 4th of October, 6 weeks before the sapphires were found in her drawer. Nobody moved. Osric Pell said, "That proves nothing, any clerk." "It proves," said the Duke of Ashenmore, "that on the 4th of October you were told to your face by a girl of 23 that you were a thief, and that you wrote on the back of the accusation in your own hand, nothing further required, and filed it under a lion. And on the 5th of October you took her keys. And on the 20th of November, 9 days after my brother died and the house was full of doctors and mourning and disorder, the sapphires were found in a drawer that only you and she could open, and it was you who suggested to my mother where to look. I have asked her this morning. She remembers. She has been remembering all day." And every head in that room turned. The Dowager Duchess of Ashenmore stood by the window with her hands folded on a black fan. She was 71. She had buried a husband and a son. She had ruled that house for 40 years, and she had never, in the whole of her life, been contradicted in a room with servants in it. She looked at Verity Lark. And Verity Lark, thin, cropped, a laundress, 3 years dead, looked back at her and waited. "I said," the Dowager began and stopped. Her fan moved once. "I said that she had had the doozing of him." "You did," said the Duke. "Say it again, madam, she is here. Say it to her." "Alaric." "Say it to her," said the Duke of Ashenmore, "or say the other thing." And the old woman's face came apart. It is a dreadful sight, an old face coming apart. It does it slowly in pieces like a wall. "I could not have it," she said, "that he was dying. I could not have it that it was nothing but the disease, and that no one had done it, and that God had simply—" her hand shut on the fan. "I wanted somebody to have done it." Nobody breathed. "And you were in his room," said the Dowager to Verity Lark, "and he laughed with you, and he did not laugh with me. And I stood in the passage outside my own son's door and heard him laughing, and I could not go in." The rain went on at the muniment window. "That is not an excuse, madam," said Verity Lark quietly. "It is only a reason, but I thank you for it, and I will take it, because a reason is more than most people are ever given." Then she turned to the Duke. "Your Grace, I do not want her ruined." "Miss Lark, I have thought of it for 3 years in a room 10 feet by 8, she said, "and I find I have no appetite for it, and I do not think it would return me 1 hour of the fever or 1 hair of my head. Mr. Pell to the law, and every shilling of that money back into the parishes with interest. And let him be tried, and let him have better counsel than I did. But not her. She is an old woman who could not bear the truth about her own child. There is nothing to be got out of her that is worth the getting." Osric Pell was taken out by Constable Hollies at 4:45. He was convicted at the summer assize of embezzlement and of the theft of the sapphires. The pawnbroker in Marrow Ford had his book, and the book had a date, and a clerk's neat hand had signed the receipt with an initial he could not unmake. And he was transported for 14 years, and the Duke of Ashenmore paid for his counsel, and sat through the whole of it in the public gallery, and said afterward that he had wished to see what it looked like from the seats. Now, what was done about me? There is a thing men say, that a duke can do as he likes. It is not true, and never was, and the Iron Duke of Ashenmore was the last man in England who would have made it true for his own convenience. I was charged. I want that plain. I was charged before the bench at Blackmere with false certification, and with conspiring to defeat a sentence of transportation, and the Duke of Ashenmore sat in that court as a witness and not as a magistrate, and when they asked him whether he had known, he said, "Not until the 29th of April, when I saw a mended cuff." And when they asked him whether he had, upon knowing, given me at once to the law, he said, "No." I first rode 40 miles to see whether she was well. Enter that against me. And Verity Lark stood up in that court in a grey gown, 3 years dead, and gave her evidence, that she had woken in a strange bed in March, that she had begged the man to go to the Duke and be done with it, and that it was she who had refused, and she who had chosen the name Mead, and that if there was a conspiracy then, she was the head of it, and Dr. Marsh had been 3 years the servant of a woman he could not persuade. The bench conferred for 11 minutes. They convicted me. Of course they did. I had done it, and I had said so twice. And then the recorder of Blackmere, a dry man of no imagination whatever, looked over his spectacles at a 54-year-old physician, and said that as the sentence which had been defeated was itself now the subject of a free pardon under the sign manual, which it was. It came down in June, and there is a copy of it in the church at Stonewick to this day, framed, next to the list of vicars. The offense had a somewhat curious character, and that he had before him a memorial signed by 411 persons of the county, including 2 clergymen, a baronet, 3 of the original jurymen, and every one of the 16 women who had lain in the fever yard at Blackmere and lived, and that he was minded to fine me 1 shilling. He fined me 1 shilling. I have it still. I did not pay it out of my pocket. The Duke of Ashenmore paid it on the spot in front of the court and asked for a receipt. That leaves the almshouse yard, and I shall tell it as it was told me, for I was not there, and the 2 of them have each told me a version, and the versions differ, and I have chosen hers. He did not do it at Ashenmore. He did not do it in a ballroom before the county, with the sneering people watching and the candles going and the room falling silent. And he could have, and half the West Valley expected it, and would have paid money to see it. He waited until the September, when the pardon had come down, and Pell was on the hulks, and the widows of 4 parishes had had their money with interest, and a great deal of ill-natured talk had come and gone. He wrote to her first, and asked leave, and she granted it. And then he rode down to Stonewick alone, without the grey, on a quiet cob, and he came into the drying green behind the almshouse row at 5 in the afternoon with the linen up on the lines, and the light coming off the whist. She was taking in sheets. She had stayed. She had gone back to the 9th door the week after the muniment room and taken up her mending, and when he had asked her why, she had said, "Because I owe Mrs. Ashby at the 11th door 2 shillings and a fortnight's help, and one does not settle one's debts by becoming interesting." He walked out onto the grass between the lines, and the Duke of Ashenmore took off his hat, and went down on both knees in the mud of a laundry yard in front of a woman, with her sleeves pushed up, and her arms full of another man's linen. "Get up," she said. "Alaric, get up, the whole row can see you." "I know it," he said. "Mrs. Ashby has an excellent view. You told me so. I have been 3 years too proud to be seen doing anything, and I find it has cost me everything I ever wanted, and I do not intend to be private about this." "Your Grace." "I am going to say the thing now," said the Duke of Ashenmore, "that I would not say to you in a jail, because you could not have answered it freely, and would not say to you in that room in April, because you had no name and no character and no choice. You have all 3 now. You have a pardon under the King's hand, and £11 a year of your own that I could not prevent Sir Gerald settling on you, and 100 people in this valley who would take you in tomorrow, and you may say no to me and lose nothing whatever, And that is the only condition on which I have ever wanted to hear you say anything." The sheet was still against her chest. She did not put it down. "Say it then," said Verity Lark. "I have loved you," said the Duke, "since the 7th of June, 4 years ago, at 4 in the afternoon, when I stood in a doorway with a book under my arm and did not come in, because you were counting drops and I could not bear to make you begin again." The mist was coming up off the whist. Somewhere in the row a door opened and did not close. "I did not tell you then because you were my brother's governess and in my power, and it would have been a contemptible thing. And I did not tell you when he died, because you were in mourning and I was in mourning, and it would have been a theft. And I did not tell you at the assize, because I was the magistrate. And I did not tell you at the jail, because I was afraid. I have had 4 years of excellent reasons, madam, and every one of them was true, and together they nearly killed you, and I have learnt the arithmetic of it too late to be proud of myself." He looked up at her, kneeling in the mud, bareheaded, 50 pounds of coat ruined. "Marry me." Verity Lark stood in the lines of wet linen, and did not answer for a long time. Then she put the sheet in the basket. She folded it, the swing, the catch, the fold under the chin. She straightened it, and she wiped her hands on her apron and looked down at the most feared man in 3 counties, kneeling in a laundry yard. "I will not be your duchess," she said, "on Thursday, or in a month, or in the spring, and I will tell you exactly why, and if you can bear the hearing of it you may have the rest of your answer." "Tell me." "Because there is no woman in England who has been 3 years dead, and a laundress and a felon in the dock, who can walk into Ashenmore Hall in October and be anything but a scandal and a spectacle and a tale. They would look at me, sir, and they would see the jail. And you would fight them for it. You would fight them beautifully, and you would ruin 4 men over it in the first year, and I have seen what it does to you when you are fighting." Her voice was perfectly steady. "You have been fighting since you were 19. I will not be one more thing you have to fight for. I have no wish to be defended. I have been defended, your grace, by the best counsel in the county, and I did not care for it." "Then what?" said the Duke of Ashenmore. "2 conditions." "Name them." "The first, a year." She said it like a figure in a ledger. "1 year in which you come here to this yard on a Thursday in the ordinary way, and sit on that stool which is not sound, and drink tea out of a chipped cup, and talk to me about the drainage at Kell Bottom and the price of slate. And I will talk to you about Mrs. Ashby's chest and about Livy, and at the end of it we shall both of us know whether what we have is a great love or 4 years of grief with nowhere to put itself. Because I do not know, sir. I have loved you a long while, and I have also been in a fever yard, and I cannot yet tell those 2 things apart, and I will not build a life on a confusion, nor will I let you." The Duke of Ashenmore knelt in the mud with his face turned up. "That is not a condition," he said. "That is a year of Thursdays. Name a hard one." "The second is hard," said Verity Lark. "Then say it." "Your mother lives in that house," she said, "and I will not have her put out of it, and I will not have her sent to a dower house at Marrow Ford to be pitied by the parish. If I come to Ashenmore, sir, I come to a house where she stays, and I will sit down to dinner with her every day of her life, and neither of us will ever be comfortable, and I will not require her to love me, and I will not pretend to love her." She lifted her chin. "But she will not be turned out on my account. I have been turned out. I know precisely what it is worth, and it is worth nothing, and it mends nothing, and I would rather be uncomfortable at dinner for 30 years than be the reason an old woman was moved out of the room where her son died." The mist came up off the river, and the Duke of Ashenmore bowed his head, there on his knees in the laundry yard at Stonewick, and said, "Yes." That is all he said, just yes. Then he got up, and he was filthy to the knee, and he picked up the other end of the basket of wet sheets, because it was heavy and the light was going, and the 2 of them carried it in together, one at each handle, and the woman at the 11th door, who had a bad heart and a good view, and who lived another 11 years and dined out on it for every one of them. said that the Iron Duke of Ashenmore went in at the 9th door of an almshouse row carrying a basket of other people's washing, and put it down by the fire, and asked whether he might have some tea.